I didn't buy a house by the ocean. I bought silence after 43 years of alarms. I bought a front row seat to mornings when the horizon blushes and the pelicans knife the water like silver prayers. I bought a small white miracle with blue shutters that looked like my grandmother's eyes, and I told myself, this time is mine. Then my son called at 9:07 a.m., his voice colder than the Atlantic in January, and said, "Stay in the tool shed. I'm bringing my wife and 17 relatives. If you don't like it, move back to the city." I did not cry. I listened. I am Doreen, retired registered nurse, the woman who held hands at 3 a.m. when machines sang their metal lullabies and families ran out of words. I saved every shift differential, skipped every vacation, drove an old Honda until it sighed into its last parking space, and on a bright Monday at 10:15 a.m., I signed my name on the deed of a beach house in Ocean View for $285,000. The agent, Sarah, slid tissues across the desk. I laughed through tears and told her, "It isn't a house, it's my freedom." For 3 months, it was exactly that. Coffee steamed in a little yellow curtained kitchen, Whiskers, a gray stray with courtroom eyes, adopted me on week 2. I planted roses like small promises along the picket fence and hung a swing beneath the oak so the wind could remember childhood. I almost called Randall, my only child, once or twice. I pictured the soft boy with the gapped grin on Christmas morning, the valedictorian clearing his throat to thank me, the engineer who still carried his glove to the park on Sundays. But the Randall of the last 3 years had a new orbit Nova. The first time I saw her at his 30th birthday, she looked like a magazine ad that had learned to walk flawless, expensive, amused by my sensible shoes. After they married, our weekly dinners vanished into boundaries. Our Christmas Eve traditions evaporated into new customs, and my invitations became obligations measured in minutes. When I asked, gently, if she was trying to separate him from his old life, he quoted her like Scripture Mom. "Nova says you never learned healthy boundaries after Dad left. She's helping me." That Thursday in September, with the hose still trickling over rose leaves, my phone rang at 9:07 a.m. "Mom," Randall said, businesslike, "we need to talk about your situation there." I steadied the can. "My situation?" He sighed. "The beach house thing. It's nice that you're having your little vacation, but Nova's family reunion is next month. 17 people. They'll take the main house. You can stay in the shed. It has electricity. Right. It'll be fine for a week or 2, maybe longer, depending." He said maybe longer the way doctors say we'll see. I asked, very calmly, "You want me to move into the tool shed of my own home?" He didn't flinch. "Mom, you're 62. You should be thinking about assisted living, not playing house by the ocean. We're worried about your finances. You spent everything, didn't you? We can't become your safety net." The world tilted, but the railing was sturdy. And so am I. "I have insurance," I said. He pushed past it. "We'll discuss it Friday. Nova sent invitations. Don't disappoint everyone." He ended the call at 9:19 a.m. The ocean kept breathing. Whiskers pressed his small weight against my ankles as if to remind me I was still here. I made tea at 10 a.m., opened photo albums, and let the past look me in the eye, the teddy bear I worked 2 months of doubles to buy, the boy in the grass-stained uniform, the young man who once said into a microphone, "My mother is everything." Somewhere between then and now, a woman named Nova decided that everything was too much. At 4:42 p.m., Nova texted, "Hi, Doreen. So excited about the reunion. Just confirming you'll be in the guest cottage." "Right. We want the main house free for Patricia and the relatives with mobility issues. Thanks for being so understanding. XOXO. Guest cottage, tool shed, exile with better lighting. I stared at the message until the sun sank low and turned the water to molten brass. Then I typed, of course, looking forward to meeting everyone. She needed to think she'd won. It is dangerous to underestimate a woman who has charted vital signs through the night and walked out of every shift with her head high. Under the soft hum of the ceiling fan at 8 p.m., I felt something old and sharp settle back into place, a spine of resolve I hadn't used in years. If they were going to make my home a battleground, then I would choose the terrain, the timing, the weapons. I would be polite, I would be patient, and I would be ready. I started with the shed at 7:30 a.m., not because I'd surrendered, but because I wanted to know the room they'd written for me. The previous owners had dressed it up as a workshop thin bathroom, a little kitchenette, a window that caught a slice of ocean if you stood on tiptoe. Dust lay everywhere like old snow. I dragged a cracked armoire from the wall and something slid free and slapped the concrete a manila folder, scuffed and thick. I knelt, expecting warranties and instruction manuals. Instead, I opened it and felt my stomach drop through the floor. Listings not Virginia, not fantasy ocean view, beachfront condos starting around $400,000, gated homes far beyond that. Across one glossy page, in elegant handwriting I recognized from place cards and thank you notes, Nova had written, "Perfect for our new start." Paper-clipped behind it a mortgage calculation for $600,000 and, under current property for trade-sale, my address. The little house with the blue shutters that looked like my grandmother's eyes. The folder shook in my hands. I set it on the rickety counter and breathed until my pulse stopped knocking. Then, at 9:02 a.m., my phone lit up with Randall. "Hey, Mom," he said, tone so gentle it scraped. "Nova found some really nice assisted living communities back in Richmond. We could visit all the time." I stared at the numbers in Nova's tidy columns. "That's thoughtful of her," I said, tasting metal. He warmed to the script. "It's just safety. You know, what if you fell? What if you had a medical emergency?" I had watched a heart restart at 2 a.m. under my hands, but I didn't mention it. "Have you and Nova been looking at houses down here?" I asked, light as sea foam. He hesitated. "She might have browsed. We thought someday, when you're ready, we could help you find something more suitable. Maybe even move down to be closer, move into my life and write me out of it." "So sweet," I said, and let him hear the smile. He concluded, "They're arriving Friday afternoon. It would be less confusing if you were already in the cottage, and Mom, don't overthink it." We hung up at 9:11 a.m., and I walked straight to my kitchen, spread the papers on the table, and opened my laptop. By 10:40 a.m., my shock had cooled into a fine, bright anger. In real estate forums, Nova was not Nova. She was a polished avatar giving advice on unlocking family equity. One post burned into me. Sometimes you make the hard call for someone who can't see the big picture anymore. Our Mel is sitting on a gold mine. We're helping her transition and preserve family wealth. Family wealth. My 43 years of night shifts and packed lunches transformed into a line item for someone else's dream sofa. Comments cheered her on, a chorus of vultures calling itself care. I closed the laptop slowly, like it might hiss. Anger is hot, but strategy is cool. I poured coffee at 11 a.m., flipped through my contacts, and pressed a number I'd kept for a decade. Margaret Chen, real estate attorney, with the calm of a surgeon and the memory of a debt she never forgot. She arrived at 1:10 p.m., crisp navy suit, thermos of green tea, eyes that miss nothing. "Doreen," she said, hugging me like family. "I heard your voice and got in the car. We sat at my table and she read. And as she read, her mouth thinned. 'This is a plan,' she said at 1:43 p.m. tapping the calculator printout. A bad faith. Premeditated plan to separate you from your home while crafting a narrative of incompetence. She slid a folder toward me. First, we build a wall around the house, an irrevocable trust with you as beneficiary and trustee. They can scream and wave papers. The property remains untouchable. Second, we document quietly. By 4:30 p.m., my deed lived inside a legal fortress. By 6 p.m., Margaret's discreet security team had scheduled an install of hidden cameras and microphones for Thursday morning, equipment designed for elder abuse cases where truth needs help finding daylight. Margaret leaned back, steam curling from her tea. "You will be gracious," she said. "You will be the picture they expect. Let them talk as if you are furniture. Let them tell on themselves." I stared at my roses swaying outside the window and nodded. "And Randall?" I asked. Her gaze softened. "Love him if you can. Protect yourself regardless." That night at 8:22 p.m., I called my son and folded myself into softness, so complete it almost fooled me. "I've been thinking—" "Honey," I said, "maybe you're right. Maybe I am too old to rattle around alone. Perhaps Nova can help me research while she's here." Relief bloomed in his silence. "Mom, I'm so proud of you for being reasonable," he said. "Staging can raise the sale price by 20%. I said, "How thoughtful," and sat on the porch in the dark afterward, listening to waves that had been here before us and would outlast us both. Tomorrow, they would arrive with coolers and smiles and a story in which I was the problem to be solved. Tomorrow, my walls would watch, and my house would remember every word. Friday came on the kind of breeze that smells like salt and endings. I packed a small suitcase before dawn, just clothes, documents, and Whisker's favorite toy mouse, and carried it out to the shed. I left everything else exactly as it was: coffee mug in the sink, book on the armrest, glasses on the table. I wanted it to look like confusion, like a woman gently fading into forgetfulness. At 8 a.m., I locked the shed door, drove 3 blocks to a seaside hotel Margaret had arranged, and opened my laptop to the security feed. Cameras blinked to life like patient eyes. At 3:30 p.m. sharp, 4 SUVs and 1 oversized RV rolled into my driveway like a parade of entitlement. The first door opened, and there was Nova, perfect as ever, in white linen, waving like a queen at her coronation. Randall followed, shoulders slightly hunched, expression unreadable. Behind them poured 17 relatives, all loud voices and rolling suitcases. I watched from the hotel window as Nova took the spare key I'd given my son years ago and turned it in my front door like she was unlocking her future. "Welcome to paradise," she sang, her voice cutting through the ocean breeze. Inside, Patricia the matriarch toured my home like an appraiser, fingertips grazing my furniture. "This is lovely, dear," she said, settling into my favorite blue chair. "Much better than that cramped apartment your mother-in-law will be moving to." Nova laughed softly. "Oh, she's not moving to an apartment. Mom, we found a wonderful assisted living facility, very clean, very safe. She'll be taken care of, and this house can finally be put to good use." On another feed, teenagers flopped onto my porch furniture, snapping selfies in front of my roses. A man unpacked coolers into my kitchen, muttering about the lack of beer. Someone else dragged in a speaker. It was a full occupation, loud and careless. But the camera in the kitchen, the one Margaret had disguised inside the clock, was the one that mattered most. Around 6:15 p.m., Nova gathered Patricia, Randall, and her sister Diane at my breakfast table, a small council of thieves. "The plan is working perfectly," Nova said, spreading papers like playing cards. "I've already contacted 3 agents. We can list it for $400,000, maybe a bit more if we stage it right. Diane frowned, and Doreen Nova smiled, cold and satisfied. She's already halfway gone. Early dementia. Classic signs. Randall's been documenting for months. I froze, hand tight around my mug. Randall nodded on screen, his voice quieter. She repeats herself a lot, forgets conversations. Last month, she called me 3 times in one day. I whispered, "You liar," to the empty hotel room. Nova continued, "The beauty of it is she thinks this was her idea. I've been planting seeds for months how lonely she must be, how worried we are. Now she's actually grateful." Patricia's laugh was sharp. "And the legal side covered," Nova said smoothly. "Randall already has medical power of attorney. Once we demonstrate diminished capacity, it'll extend to financial. We've been creating a paper trail, missed bills, confusion, all documented." For a moment, I forgot to breathe. They weren't improvising. They were rehearsing. Every kindness, every concern, every gentle suggestion was part of a script to turn me into a helpless caricature. Randall's voice came again, flat. "The assisted living place is holding a spot. $5,000 a month, but the sale will cover it," Diane asked. "What about the cottage?" Nova shrugged. "We'll tear it down, expand the garden. No reminders of the old mess." I turned off the sound for a moment and let the silence sit heavy. The woman on that screen, the one laughing, confident, certain thought she had already erased me. She thought the paperwork and pity had won. I thought of the years of night shifts, of the quiet bravery it takes to comfort the dying, of every time I'd told a terrified family that love means staying strong even when your voice shakes. That strength was mine again now. When I turned the sound back on, Nova was saying, "Doreen's been isolated for years, no close friends, no other relatives. She made this easy." Randall smiled faintly, eyes on her like a student watching his teacher. "It's hard," he said. "She's my mom." But Nova helped me see enabling her isn't helping. Sometimes you have to make tough decisions for people you love. Nova squeezed his hand. "You did the right thing, baby." At 8 p.m., I closed the laptop. The ocean outside was black glass, the sky salted with stars. Whiskers curled against my side as I whispered, "Let them think they've won." Every word, every lie, every signature of betrayal was stored, time-stamped, undeniable. Tomorrow, they would still be celebrating their success. Tomorrow, they would learn who they were really dealing with. Saturday dawned bright. Cruelly beautiful, the kind of morning when the sea looks like forgiveness, even when you know it isn't. I dressed carefully, not as the frail woman Nova had scripted, but as the woman I used to be, crisp navy suit, hair neatly pinned, the quiet armor of competence. At 8:30 a.m., Margaret arrived at my hotel, flanked by Detective Sarah Morrison from the county's Elder Abuse Unit and James Wright from the District Attorney's Office. On the table between us, my laptop played the footage from the night before. No one spoke until the last words. Sometimes you have to make tough decisions for people you love faded into static. Morrison's face was carved from stone. "It's textbook," she said. "Premeditated manipulation, falsified incompetence, fraudulent intent. We can move as soon as you're ready." "I'm ready," I told her, and I was. By 9:45 a.m., we turned into my driveway. From the car window, I saw my home desecrated by comfort volleyball net in the yard, towels draped over my porch railing, music leaking through open windows. Teenagers lounged where I used to drink coffee and watch pelicans. Nova stood near the roses with Patricia, phone in hand, giving orders. It felt like watching strangers act out a play on a stage I had built. "Remember," Margaret said quietly, "let them talk. The more they reveal before we enter, the cleaner this will be." I nodded, then stepped from the car and walked toward the door as if I had every right in the world, which, Of course. I did. Nova opened it, her smile freezing halfway when she saw me dressed like a verdict. Doreen. What a surprise. We were just, getting settled. Her voice fluttered with false brightness. Why don't you rest? Dear Patricia wanted to talk about some plans. Perfect. I said, let's do that. Inside, my living room was crowded with family. 17 pairs of eyes followed me as Patricia waved a manicured hand toward a wooden chair. Doreen, sit, sweetheart. We've been talking, and we think it's time to have an honest conversation about your future. I sat, folded my hands, waited. Nova perched on the arm of my sofa. All pity and poison. We're just concerned, that's all. This house is too big for you, too much upkeep. Sunset Manor is beautiful. You'll have meals, activities, friends. You deserve that kind of care. Randall stood by the window, eyes down. We've already spoken to real estate agents. Mom, the market's great right now. 400,000. Maybe more. That seems low, I said evenly. Nova laughed softly. Doreen, you have to be realistic. It's better to sell quickly before the maintenance costs drain you, Patricia added, and Randall will handle everything. He has power of attorney. I smiled. Actually, he doesn't. The room went still, air thick with confusion. Randall frowned. Mom, what are you talking about? Of course, medical power of attorney, I said, for health decisions, not financial, and only if I'm incapacitated, which I am not. Nova's laugh cracked. Doreen, you're being silly. You're proving our point. You're clearly confused. Am I asked, pulling my phone from my pocket, one button, and the living room filled with familiar voices. The beauty of it is she thinks this was all her idea. I've been planting seeds for months. The sound of her own words hit Nova like a slap. Patricia's mouth opened and closed without noise. Randall's head snapped toward the hidden clock camera still ticking above the mantel. Around us. Relatives shifted uneasily. What is this? Nova demanded. The truth, I said softly. The truth about what you've been planning in my home. Randall's face reddened. Mom, this is insane. You're recording us now. That's not healthy behavior. I turned toward the door. Detective Morrison, I called. You can come in now. The door opened, and uniformed officers stepped through, calm and professional. Morrison's badge gleamed as she spoke. Nova Hartwell and Randall Hartwell. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit elder financial abuse and fraud. The room erupted, Patricia shouting about harassment. Teenagers crying, someone dropping a plate. Nova spun on Randall, hissing, do something. But my son just stood there, face drained of color, watching his life collapse. You bitter old witch! Nova spat as officers cuffed her wrists. You've ruined everything. Randall, tell them. But he only whispered, she said you were sick. Mom, I thought. I met his eyes. You thought wrong. By noon, the house was quiet again. The RV gone. The laughter gone. Only the ocean's steady rhythm remained. Margaret joined me on the porch while Detective Morrison's team finished their paperwork inside. The trust holds, Margaret said. They'll never touch this place. I looked out at the sea, the swing swaying gently in the wind, whiskers curling against my leg. I'm not angry anymore, I said, just free. 6 months later, the air in Ocean View felt different, cleaner somehow, as if the wind itself had been waiting for the truth to come out. The trial was over before spring truly bloomed. Nova pled guilty to elder abuse conspiracy and served 3 years. The judge, a woman near my age, didn't hide her disgust. Family is meant to protect, she said in court, not prey. I sat quietly in the back, hands folded, thinking how strange it felt to be both victim and victor at once. Randall's case was harder. He cooperated, turned over messages, signed statements. He didn't go to prison, but he faced something worse: the slow, unrelenting work of understanding what he'd become. He wrote to me from counseling that June. His letter arrived at 4:15 p.m. on a Tuesday. The ink a little smudged. He said he was trying to remember who he was before Nova's voice started filling his head. He said guilt wakes him at night, that he keeps hearing me say, "You thought wrong." He asked if forgiveness was possible. I didn't answer right away. For weeks, I left the letter on my kitchen table, next to a vase of fresh roses and Whisker's new toy, a tiny orange mouse he carried everywhere. Some wounds need silence before they need words. When I finally replied, it was simple. I told him trust isn't something you rebuild in a day. It's something you plant, water, and wait for, like the roses outside that still bloom even after being trampled. I didn't promise him everything, but I didn't close the door either. By midsummer, my life had settled into a rhythm so quiet it almost sang. I'd planted new rose bushes, white, coral, and pale yellow, colors Nova would have called unsophisticated. I replaced the old porch swing with a stronger one, built by a local carpenter who refused payment when he learned the story. "You saved my aunt's life back in '09, he said. "This is a thank you." Every morning at 6:30 a.m., I make coffee, step outside, and watch the sunlight creep over the horizon. Sometimes I talk to the ocean the way I used to talk to patients in the long hospital nights softly, like it's listening. Freedom feels strange after you've spent a lifetime taking care of others. It's quieter than I expected, lonelier sometimes, but honest. No pretending, no manipulation, just the sound of waves, the hum of a cat, and a heart finally at rest. I've learned something through all this. You can love someone completely and still need to protect yourself from them. You can raise a child, give them every good thing, and still watch them choose a path that breaks you. But you can also survive it. You can build again. You can bloom again. When people hear my story, they always ask what I would tell someone going through the same thing. Here's my answer. Don't let guilt disguise itself as love. Don't let anyone, no matter how close, convince you that you owe them your peace. Stand up for your life, your dignity, your home. You earned it. And if you're watching this, maybe you know someone like me, someone quiet, someone generous, someone whose kindness others mistake for weakness. Tell them they are stronger than they think. Tell them it's never too late to take their life back. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps more than you know. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single one.